I think Jay Moore brought this up a while back. I don't think he remembers it, but I was having a conversation about integrity with one of my homies. He's a producer.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about finding loops and just, you know, skipping over the obvious at our age because I guess it's quote unquote too easy and there's no integrity there. Finding the big loop, boom, putting some drums over it, we off to the races. And I think sometimes we gas integrity because what we hear now is everybody's doing it for the bag. Everybody does this for the bag, that for the bag. But hasn't that always been a thing in hip hop? Hasn't everything been related to the bag, or are we just putting that on? You don't think so? That's why. That's why I'm asking.
They weren't making money.
But what I'm asking is, that's why I want to talk about it, because you saw the 4-finger rings, you saw people with all the chains and stuff like that. So it was a part of it.
Now Street.
Huh?
Now Street.
I see. What I'm asking is,
those jackets weren't actually made by Gucci.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Fair enough. What I'm asking is, have we gassed that concept? Because I think we hear it more now, but hasn't everybody been about paper, into the paper? Even if it was on a lower scale?
At the end of the day, that was I would say the goal, but they weren't making money like that back then. That's why Jay-Z has referenced like the Fresh Fest or Fresh Crew and all of them saying that we overcharging for what they did to them because they weren't making it like that. It was just they were flashy and they had means to make it look like they had money, but they didn't have money like that.
What I've always subscribed to is, and I've been in this side of it, is that it was more about quote unquote the art back then, like just actually being a creative and doing it
because it had to be.
Yeah,
because it had to be. But I guess my question is, I'm just thinking
that's the only capital
you had to be.
Had.
True, that part of it is legit. But I'm just thinking, I know people were still motivated by we trying to get out the hood. I'm trying to get out my situation. In addition to, you know, just being a dope creative. I just don't know if it's something that's been gassed or is it just straight evolution, because now everything is about paper, in my opinion. I think the artist and the integrity and everything is at the lowest now. But I just don't know
to a certain extent. I can't say that as a whole. For
on the mainstream
game, I wouldn't even say on the mainstream because there's still people out there that are literally striving to be the best them that they can be, even though the product might not be as good as you think it is or you think it should be. To them, they're, you know what I'm saying, stepping into their greater self.
Would that portion, let me ask you this. The portion that you're describing, would that be, is it fair to say that that's lower in relation to like the norm with the people that's just really getting to the bag? That's what I'm saying. Like percentage wise, it's a lot lower, right?
I can agree with that.
Okay. Maybe
but
that's
I don't think that everybody's just in it as a money grab.
Okay.
Because I mean, it started out as something to pass time, to entertain the youth who were in these housing projects and gave them something to do. They weren't necessarily thinking about getting paper. They who knew that one day that something that you were doing in your projects was going to turn into a worldwide phenomenon.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't think they knew it back then. It was just them being young, fresh, and fly, and it morphed into something bigger than them. And then eventually the bag came. I mean, thinking about it, I mean, the first artist to really start making some money was Run DMC,
Curtis Blow.
Curtis LL was getting some paper,
and then
but that was still later.
Yeah. Because see, I'm not talking when I to your point, when it was at its infant stage and they in the park and rocking. I feel.
Does Curtis Blow still have paper now? Like, was his stuff together?
I mean, because you still got to, when people use the breaks, anything from the breaks, or, when they came and used Christmas rapping for next Too Close, Curtis Blow got a check, and that song plays a lot.
That's true.
So Curtis
got
Blow
a nice check off
still
that.
gets, like, there are people, like I heard Lenny Williams say, like, he still gets like a 6-figure check from when Kanye
Slow
used
Jams.
from, no.
Not Slow Jams, what am I missing? With
I can't remember, but it was a next song.
With Twista.
Yeah, and so he said, "Look, I help me put my kids through college." You know what I'm saying? Like
overnight celebrity.
Yeah,
that's what
like so. If you're one of those and you took care of your paperwork, which I'm assuming he did because we don't ever hear any hard luck stories about Curtis Blow.
That's true.
So I mean,
you're really really none of the people that really start getting paper in hip hop, you don't hear nothing about them. Like Run DMC, I mean, they're solidified. I'm sure they get great residuals off what they did, and then
I would think so.
Even the Fat Boys, I mean, it's only one left now.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But you never heard about them being in any monetary trouble or anything like that.
What you think about the just the concept?
Definitely not LL.
Nah, LL, he got to
LL
be
getting that
straight.
TV money. He ain't thought about it, you know.
Ice-T too.
Yeah, so
Especially Ice-T. He
20 years on one TV show. He's on TV literally somewhere in America every day.
he low key should get more flowers for that. Coming from the rapper that he was.
Hey, he doesn't need the flowers, but you know why? Because he gets checks. Ice-T lived better than almost anybody you have ever seen.
I'm with you.
Did
when
you see the evidence?
That's
What'd you
crazy.
say?
Cold case.
That's
Mike
crazy.
Epps is stupid, man. That's crazy. What do you think about that, Jay Moore? Is it just par for the course, man, or is it
Well, I think when you talk about integrity,
right? And this can go for production.
You know,
as well.
and the
That's
thing
what
is, we
started
don't
it for
even
me.
have to talk about, money, because all of a sudden, because there's always that thing to where like, oh, I'd rather have some respect than some money. You hear people say, at
100%.
one point said stuff like that in hip hop. I think I'm alluding a little bit to J. Rue the Damager. No, maybe I can't remember.
I think you're in the right track.
Yeah,
I
but
think you're on the right track.
it depends. And what integrity is to some people is different. For whatever you have to say about Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, Diddy, Brother Love, whatever. His family, his children are all taken well care of. And depending on which artist you talk to, like there's some artists who said I have no problem with the business I did with Diddy because but if you talk to Mace, Diddy has no integrity at all, and he owes me my publishing. But if he asks me to go on tour, I'll go right now.
Say that.
Shine just did a whole bid beyond Puffy and came and performed for his BET
That's
special.
tough.
So when you talk about integrity, it depends on what form of integrity, because like for some people, the highest form of integrity is making sure that your children are taken care of. For some people, if you're an artist or a creator, your integrity, when dealing with somebody is how they do business with you. So but there's always been like this kind of yin and yang to where people feel like you can't be Jay-Z or Beyonce and have any integrity because you're so rich.
Right.
When you talk.
It's only for black artists.
Well,
though,
that's true.
That part.
And so when there's always people looking to like tie them to the devil or whatever. And so obviously you can't have integrity. Now you just completely skip over all the the charitable work they do and all the people they activism they do and get people out of jail, but that's not important. I don't feel like because I'm an artist like I was supposed to get $3 per record when I put my albums out non-recoupable. So that is a lack of integrity on these people's part. But I just think that that whole integrity, like it's almost like when there was always the backpackers versus the commercial rappers. These people have no integrity because they want to be on TV and on the radio. And here I am. I have integrity because I have these lyrics and I don't use obvious
you
samples.
Be on the TV and radio too.
The thing is, once any of those people get a commercial look, boy, they are so happy to take it.
We can speak on that. I don't know if it's the height of that conversation, but I remember that vividly, the backpacker versus the
because
the rapper that sold out.
I got caught up in that. I was like, man,
I did too.
Those people, they, I'm real hip hop over here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm over here, in this basement and, listening to the real, and those people at those clubs popping champagne. That's not real. People don't have any integrity just because they might like something different. They party.
You wasn't even
way.
wearing a spacesuit. We talking about real hip hop.
Yeah,
cats was back wearing suits and
with the
glitter and all kinds of stuff.
Having and just because they sampled Diana Ross, there's no integrity to that. I sampled Diana Ross, but it wasn't one of her hits. I mean,
there was mad layers to that conversation.
So I mean, I think there are levels to what people consider integrity, depending on what your interaction is with them. So I don't know. It's just that eternal question because. Now there are people who might have been, oh man, forget Puffy and them. Like there are people now. There's been a resurgence of people saying, hey man, we should have gave more respect to MC Hammer. You know what I'm saying? He really knocked down a lot of walls for us to be able to get this money in the industry.
That's a fact.
And you got to understand there were people when you know, that the guys who rapped in the park and they didn't get a chance, you know, they made money off of shows and passing around tapes. And then here comes Run DMC, just dressed like guys from the neighborhood. They're like, well, what are these guys doing? You know what I'm saying? So if you came out and you were a rapper and you had an MC and you were getting love in 1977, I don't even want to talk about the Sugar Hill Gang because that's a whole nother thing. But I'm talking about the guys who were actually in the park, those legends that we know about.
Yeah.
You know, and then here comes, you know, and then when you have Africa Bambaataa, they dress like, you know, the Hebrew Israelites mixed with like some real rock and roll type stuff. And then you see Run DMC and it's like, how you going to do a stage show, two guys with just leather jackets, you know, Godfather hats and Adidas? That doesn't make any sense. So you'd be like, where's their, so at that point, they're like, where's their integrity? They're not carrying on tradition. So it's always somebody who's going to see the next level of something.
That's true.
And feel like there's no integrity to that, not only artistically, but then they'll take it in a place where like, okay, if they're getting this much financially, how much integrity can they actually have? And that's just,
that's where I'm going to go.
It's the, it's the eternal question, and we're never going to stop talking about it.
What you think, Long?
Well, I mean, hip hop started off as like a movement of sorts, right?
Right.
Sure.
What was the movement about?
The movement was pretty much about having fun,
stopping these gang fights.
Yep.
And having something to do in the neighborhood. I mean, they were in housing projects.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, it was some a
big block party,
pretty much.
So I feel like there's multiple conversations that could be had. I feel like we could go super deep into this conversation about the integrity because you guys really eloquently kind of broke down levels of capitalism, right? And how that has affected different communities and how it always, as we see right now, it people at the top always want more and people at the bottom want what the people at the top have right? I don't know. I feel like it was different before the entire capitalist system, right? Just
before the crack era.
Well, before that,
essentially, that's what kind of heightened the money aspect of it.
But even it was really kind of after that. So it's like, and it's not like one thing, right? But once capital was infused into hip hop, it changed because it was like it there's so much more that you can reach with it. And I feel like at the heart of kind of what the music, like the argument that we hear is like, well, it was just for the art. It was for the sake of creating to create,
the culture, the love,
to push the movement of betterment and all these things, right? Once capital gets involved, then that gets pushed aside because it's like, oh, well, we can all get money, which, right, because we're in that system anyways.
Right.
But to me, once you start like living by capitalist ideologies, you lose some integrity off top. It's just it's just what capitalism does. I mean, I'm not to get super political, but I've been thinking about this stuff a lot recently. So, you know, it's like we see it and it's around us. So I don't know. Maybe that makes sense to some people. Maybe it doesn't.
Well, I mean, because, and this is where, you know, especially when I'll never forget. I remember reading an issue of The Source, and this is 91, 92, and
reading reading a magazine.
Yeah, wow. Crazy. Print is dead. But the interviewer was with Phife Dawg from a Tribe Called Quest. Rest in peace to him. And I'll never forget, like, because he was in a BMW, and like it was almost like he had to like justify him being, you know, this rapper who has these accolades, if you will, and is considered, you know, this in the pantheon of what it is that we do here as far as hip hop. And he's like, oh man, you know, it's an investment, which a luxury car is never an investment.
Nah, because
it's like you know, you are a successful, you sell records, you do shows. You don't have to justify to me why you have a BMW.
Right.
True.
It's almost like we feel like it would be like if you know, it's like sometimes there are people who feel a certain way when they see that their favorite rapper might actually have a nice house. Yeah. Cause he's like, you're supposed to be one of the people. It's like, well, yeah, I'm one of the people, but I sell records and do shows.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm not getting it.
But it's also a thing where like, I also related back to just, you know, black music in America, you know, coming from the blues. Even if you look at some parts of the gospel tradition, it always has been, there's always been a level of aspiration to it. You know, even we talk about, and I know we said we were going to skip over the Sugar Hill Gang, but I'll bring it back to them just for this point. You know, we talked about how, you know, that whole thing, they didn't have a color TV so they could see the Knicks play basketball. You know what I'm saying? A Lincoln Continental and a brand new Cadillac. Like, that sounds like crumbs compared to what these guys rap about now, as far as having, you know, buying the girl a Birkin bag every day and having, you know, riding twin Bentleys. You know, that doesn't sound like anything.
Don't do that if you're out there doing that.
But, you know, it just is a thing that, because there was this time where, like, oh, if you were materialistic, you had no integrity in you know, in hip hop. Like, there was that backpacker time, I want to say, you know, around that 93 to 99.
We lived that era.
You know, if you had on gold and you had a nice car in your video, you were seen as not authentically hip hop.
But look, though, be clear. The guy that you talked about and you described that was in the basement, right? Versus the people that were out on the boats or whatever. Be clear, the dude that's blowing the dust off the vinyl, he definitely would love to be a part of that. You can say that you are for the culture and this and that.
I don't understand. Look, why it's taboo to want to have more. I mean, with
because
any kind of talent,
society has done so much to our culture.
Any kind of talent or know-how is generally rewarded with money or wealth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
If
you're good, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
if you're good,
you want to aspire to be good enough to live off of your talent. Some people, I think the problem now is it's so saturated that some people don't have to put in as much work as others did and may not even be considered as good. So you frown at them versus looking at the bigger picture. That, I mean, it's like hitting the lottery almost. This person just he hit the lottery. He didn't have to grind that much, but he's still in a position to play the game the same way that somebody that grinded for 10 years and finally made it there.
It's funny that you said that to kind of to bring it back to my original point about the production conversation. Have you ever heard or listened to Pete Rock talk about how hard it was to make beats on the SP1200s, and then hear him talk about, or I've heard RZA say how full loops can be dragged over into sessions now that have melodies that are already set up.
Yeah,
like these guys had a very small amount of sample time on 8 or 9, 10 tracks or whatever. So by nature, they're going to say, man, it's so much easier now. All these kids got to do is drag and drop to hit to his point. Like, I totally get that.
What's that got to do with integrity, though?
No, I'm talking about, it just jumped out of my mind from when he said that, because Pete Rock will say, well, these guys got it easy now, so it's not the same. It's not real. It's not.
It's going to be easy. I mean, lots of things are easier.
In 20 years from now,
I hope
they'll say, hey, those guys had it easier.
I agree.
In 2020, and where we had it, they have it so much easier than we did in 2022.
That's the purest conversation.
But that's the way it's supposed to be.
It is. It's evolution.
We're supposed to evolve in a positive way to where things get better throughout time. We're not supposed to go backwards.
Your kids aren't supposed to struggle as hard.
It's easier to start a fire nowadays than it was in the Ice Age.
Yeah.
Right, I don't need a flint in a rock or anything to start a fire now. I'm not mad at that.
It's kind of like when we had a conversation, or maybe this wasn't with y'all, but like we talked about like maybe our first computer.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about that.
Yeah, and the ridiculously terrible specs. Like
RAM, how long it took to log onto the internet.
At one point, people would have to play a song at double or triple the speed because they only had 2 or 3 seconds of sample time. Yep. And so that was one of the tricks they had to do to get,
which is extremely hard.
Or you might be playing the same song for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
and that if somebody put that equipment in front of me and I got a tutorial on how to use it, my mind's not wired to use it that way.
But just because you have it easier, that doesn't mean there's a lack of integrity in what you do.
It doesn't.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mean that person isn't just as talented as you were.
Yeah.
Whenever you was putting yours together.
They just have access to better tools.
That's the part that gets lost, is the fact that you can still be cold with the updated kit. The talent can still be there. I think that part gets lost.
And I remember saying this about Scott Metallic. It took him a little longer you know, to get off of vinyl to finally get, you know, Serato. You know, once again, for some of you younger people listening, there are some people who literally had to bring crates of
Straight
records
wax.
to a club to go ahead and rock a party. But
Some
as
niggas still
soon as
do it,
he
too.
got Serato, he was basically unstoppable.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the thing is like now you give Premier or DJ or a Battle Cat or any of these producers that worked, if you give them these same tools, you know, maybe you don't hear their names as much, or maybe they're not as into it as they used to be. But if they really sat down, they'd be considering the limited hardware that they had at that time. It would now
Go watch Jazzy Jeff. It's like a layup.
Come on now,
It's like a layup.
It's but you know, at the same time, it's I don't think it's something to be like if you're already, to Jay Moore's point, if you're already good at something, you really have to be in a mindset to be able to embrace the change of what everything is going to be. You can't be that person like, oh man, like, yeah, we had it so much harder because I could only sample 10 seconds on an SP and I had to put it to 45 mode and all this other stuff. It's like, yeah, but look, it's not easy to learn these programs that are out right
That
now.
part.
Just like, I mean, I bought an MPC 2000 XL a decade ago. I made one beat, took me 2 hours, and I sold it because I didn't want to do it anymore.
I remember.
It's the other way around with learning this technology. Like my class is 9 months long, but at the same time, like you're not going to be good at the end of 9 months unless you practice every single day, and you're probably not going to be good.
There is,
but it's you know, there's still hurdles in every aspect of it.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I agree. I've called you many a night saying, look, what does this mean on this install? I have no idea. You know what I'm saying? It's with new equipment, new stuff. So
yeah, it's
it's just
so whether it
it's
be
good conversation,
artistic or
though.
just personal integrity, you know, it does depend on who you're dealing with and what your relationship is based on.
Yeah.
Because like I said, you could be the best father, the best husband in the world, and then someone who does business with you would be like, man, he stole $50,000 from me.
True.
You know, so
True.
or he took all my publishing. Now it's worth, you know, $300 million.
and why do they do that? Because of capitalism.
Talk
That's
to
why.
him, Lone. Bring it back to capitalism.
Y'all want to know how really? No, let's.
Yeah.